I'm Karen Hoyt, Marketing Director at Shasta Regional Medical Center, and we're proud to be part of the conversation that the Forum at KIXE is bringing to our community. Shasta Regional has been around for more than 60 years supporting our community, and we would like to invite you to be a part of the Forum on KIXE. Together, we can support the community that gives us back so much. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you for watching the Forum. I'm your host, Ashley Tate, here with my co-host, Christy Largent, and our guest today, Faye Hall from BuildIT, which is a technology company that teaches technology to children. How are you today?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Well, Faye, when we heard about what you were doing with BuildIT and now CodeIt, your new business, we knew immediately we had to have you on the Forum because you really embody an interesting person doing an interesting thing, and you have a really interesting background. I think we'll start with that. You are not a native of Redding, and you come from an interesting background. So tell us how you ended up in Redding here in the North State.
Right. Where should I start? I actually born and raised China, so came from Shanghai, China, all the way, landed in Lawrence, Kansas.
How old were you when that happened?
That was 20. I was
Were you
20.
Okay, so
yeah.
Okay.
In college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then went to college. That was very much a culture shock. Then when I met my husband, I moved to California, which I loved it. So we lived in the Bay Area for over about 12 years, and just about 2 years ago, we moved here. And first, I was gonna send my children to Bethel Christian School. That's how got us here, and I always have this fantasy be living on the farm because I was such a city girl.
You wanted to live on the farm. That, I think, is a lot of fantasies for a lot of women.
And so we sort of dream come true. We moved to Palo have a few acres. But it's still a pursuit of farmer. And I'm still working on my garden, so.
I don't think you're alone in that.
Yeah.
Now, during that time, did you start BuildIT once you moved to Redding, or was it prior to moving to Redding that you had BuildIT already?
Well, before that, I was pretty much working high-tech, Silicon Valley. And after we came out here, we just love it here. And I was like, what are we going to do with the kids?
Right.
You know, summer camp stuff. And then that's where I just thought we can do something more in this community. It seems like just ripe for opportunities. So I just took on the opportunity.
I love that. It seemed like the community was ripe for opportunity.
That's right,
I think that attitude led you to the next step. But I want to go back because I think you have a unique little part of your CV that was when you were in Silicon Valley. Who were you working for, and what was your background? I think that's so fascinating.
Right. It's really funny. Me and my husband, we first met in Santa Cruz, and we always go to Santa Cruz, and we bought our first house there.
Yeah.
So I was just looking for jobs that close to where we live.
Right.
And that's when I found this little tiny company. Actually, eBay called me when they were just like this tiny company no one really knows. And they're very desperate need of people. So I went for an interview. It was really funny. It was at the front office with 2 lawn chairs.
Oh my gosh.
It'll make this look like a 5-star hotel. It's just like, it's like 1 table, 2 lawn chairs.
And that's how a lot of those startup companies start. And then
so you're thinking, what am I getting into here?
Yeah,
right?
and people were just going back and forth, and they couldn't even find a place to interview me, so they shuffled me to this general counsel lawyer's room stacked with paper, and the person interviewing me was sitting behind us, all this paper, all this big mess, so we just talked for a little while.
And starting with eBay.
But what was your background that you were able to be eventually hired by eBay, right?
Right, I was a networking engineer, worked when I was in Kansas, worked for Sprint PCS, right now the Sprint, when they launched their first wireless network. So sort of just be really blessed to be at the right place at the right time. Really.
But with the right education. I mean, you didn't come with the poli-sci degree like some people at this table. me, which is worth absolutely zippo. But you came with a technological background. Obviously, you knew your sciences, the maths were strong, and you were able to study networking.
Yeah, I think also there's just that attitude. You know, I was a medical student, and then I started converted to computer science, then did software. But when I was hired by Sprint, they sort of hired me for the wrong job. I was doing networking.
Right.
But I always have this confidence, just like growing up, even though really poor, but my parents always empower me.
Right.
Like,
and that is sort of the key to being successful. I mean,
it really is.
It truly does not matter your background. You can be successful, you can be innovative anytime.
Right.
So tell us how you ended up with BuildIT. Tell us how you came from eBay and then how you got to Redding, and you and your husband both started BuildIT. So tell us all about BuildIT and how it got started, the idea.
Yeah, so I worked at high tech, and then when I have a son and a daughter, and when my daughter was 3, my son was about 5, I just felt like I want to be a mom. So I think a life is more than just working.
That's right.
So I want to experience life to its fullness.
Right.
So I just left eBay, like just being a full-time mom, and we have wonderful few years, and just, of course, but the nature that type A
Yes, I can completely
nature
understand.
and all this tech background. So I sort of just outpouring into my kids. So they do Lego robotics, they do film camp, you know.
That's right.
They compose music. They, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, even now they're like doing background in Hollywood. So like even as we're living in Redding, I drive them to LA to do be on the Disney show and just be that little background show. You know, it's just that
you're giving
type
them experiences.
Yeah,
And
so
that's the
I'm
thing.
totally into exposing them. I really enjoy being a mom. And then I was like, if my son likes it or my daughter likes something, I think other kids may like it too. You know, I just felt I just did some good stuff.
Right.
And when my children, they just learn Scratch programming, do Lego robotic,
And
very
now
easy.
you also do some of that for birthday parties, is that correct?
yes.
And I want to hear all about those birthday parties. Like I might want to do that for my daughter. And she's going to New York, I guess, for one of those.
I know.
Tell us about that.
So BuildIT, to describe it's Scratch programming, in case you don't know, why don't you describe what Scratch programming is and Lego robotics? What does that look like? Thankfully, I got to see it because my daughter was your first girl participant.
Frontier.
So,
Emily.
Yes, Amelia came right in and just loved it. And I asked her, what was your favorite part of Lego's robotics camp? And guess what she said? Programming.
Wow.
So I was really happy to hear that. So tell us a little bit what BuildIT ran this summer, and what is involved in the camp for our viewers.
Right. So we started doing Lego robotic, and so it's really fun. They have to do their programming on a computer laptop, which it's all Apple. We love Mac, so they all get to do this programming on the Mac. Then they have to download the software onto the robot. And then the robot will do things like turn around, and sometimes the 2 students' robot will interact, will do a sumo wrestling contest. And then if it doesn't work, they have to go back and change their program and tweak it and make it better. So that whole cycle is really sort of very close to real life product programming development.
And a learning process in the process of doing it.
And they don't even know they're learning.
Right,
They're just like, oh my gosh, I want my sumo bot to win. So they just go for it. And then with the Scratch programming, it's a full-on programming language developed by MIT, but it's very visual. So they can have a cartoon characters, they build their own characters.
I love that.
Yeah, and we taught them how to program a game. So
they're learning computer skills, they're learning programming skills, they're learning problem-solving skills, all under guise of a camp.
That's right.
Right.
So you've started Build It. It was very successful over the summer. Now it's full time, right? You have your own studio
Right.
here in Redding, and then that led to the launch of your newest venture, Code It. We don't want to
Code It.
leave that out.
Absolutely.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about Code It.
Yes, the Coded is pretty much a natural extension of Build It. So we felt like we want to give the best to this community.
Yeah.
And this community deserves the best. I mean, ever since we moved here, everyone just been so welcoming. My kids just plugged in the community like they've been living here since they were born.
Yeah.
My husband loves it here. So, I mean, my attitude is why not the best? You know, so we just want to bring even Silicon Valley to Shasta County. That's what the drive behind the Coded. That we teach kids, and now we can teach adults.
Yeah.
And once we have a workforce and we have this base community that's high tech, then all the ideas who want to run it, you have the people to run it with
That's
you.
right.
So your Code It will be offered how? How if somebody said, I want to come to your Code It program or I want to find out more about it, where would they go for information?
We have a website, www.codedredding.com.
CODEIT dot Redding, no,
Yeah.
CODE Redding.com.
CODEIT. So it's like IT. We play with the word.
right.
Also, it's
Sure,
like
Build
IT.
It.
Code It.
And
Yeah.
IT, yeah,
Got it.
very cute.
CodedRedding.com.
Very cute.
And Build It is BuildItRedding.com.
And I do just want to say one thing. I mean, I know you're downplaying a lot and you're being very modest, but she was just recognized at Game Changers for a very innovative company here in Redding, and that's a huge honor.
It is.
It means a lot to this community what you're doing and bringing here, teaching our kids technology. We don't have anything like that yet, so thank you so much.
You are definitely the head of the pack.
That's
And,
right.
Yeah.
and the exciting thing is this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Really,
Right.
because as this takes off, you're going to have every opportunity to grow it, and people will come through your programs, and then they will take it and make their own ideas and do their own new
Right.
programs.
Right.
And it's just kind of exciting to see what you're starting with this, all from an idea and wanting to give back. I
Right.
mean, isn't that?
And really, we're just a piece of the puzzle. You know?
Exactly, and it's a great way
We're
to
not
think
doing
of.
this alone.
Yeah.
And there's so many people just on this.
Right.
And
But you're bringing it together, and that's, I love that you say a piece of the puzzle, because that's really how this whole entire community should be
Yeah.
thinking about everything we do. It's just a piece, and we're putting it all together.
We're all
and
bringing
everybody's-
something
Right.
good
That's
to
right.
to the community.
Yes.
So your actual physical location is on Merchant Avenue in
Right.
Redding, and your classes for Build It will be held there. When do you offer classes?
We usually offer like afternoons,
Okay.
like 4 to 6. We have Monday through Thursdays and Saturday classes
And
and
then what
workshop
about
Fridays.
Code It will be offered when?
Code is gonna start January. It's
In
gonna be
January.
like boot camp, more intensive.
Perfect. So
For
we're
adults,
gonna watch your website.
Yes.
CodeItRedding.com. You know, thanks so much, Faye, for being on,
Aw,
and
thanks.
thank you for watching.
you.
We'll be back in a minute with our second segment of the show.
Hi, we're back on the forum, and I'm here with our guest, Rachel Hatch, who is Research Director of Institute for the Future and also co-curator of TEDx Redding. So it's so great to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me.
Yeah, and we love that you and Faye are on the same show because
So many synergies.
yeah, exactly. So, well, first we want to know a little bit about Rachel. You're darling. You are very well educated and well spoken and well traveled, and you're in Redding by choice. I am assuming you're by choice.
By choice,
Located
indeed.
here in
Yeah.
Redding. So tell us about you. How did you get here? What's the story?
So I originally grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Iowa and lived a bunch of different places. Ended up in the Bay Area about 5 years ago. And the way I got to the Bay Area was I was actually in divinity school. So I was studying religion, which is a passion area of mine. And I was on campus one day and my mentor said, there's a speaker coming to campus and you need to hear him because you think kind of like him, but you just don't know it yet. And so that was sort of strange.
Yeah,
You don't know what to make when you hear that. So,
Yeah.
so I went and it was Bob Johansson who ended up being my future boss in the Bay Area. So I made a move and he is at Institute for the Future. And so I got to meet a whole cohort of colleagues there and just fell in love with becoming a futurist, which was something I didn't know was a thing.
Yeah.
At
anyone
cocktail
did.
parties.
Yeah. So what is a futurist and what is Institute for the Future? What do you guys do?
Our mission, we're a nonprofit, and our mission is to catalyze the global community to think more systematically about longer term futures. So we try to think 10 years out, which is really a luxury, because I think a lot of organizations, you think of the next fiscal quarter or the 3-year strategic plan at the very outside, which then goes on a shelf somewhere and no one pays attention.
Never to be referred to again.
Right, exactly. So we try to cultivate an intentional discipline of scanning the horizon for signals that are indicators of future directions of change.
And that is a little bit confusing. And you had a pretty good example of how to explain that when you were talking about how in the 70s they started talking about AuthorNet. Was that what you called?
Yeah, so the some of my colleagues who are still at the Institute have been there for, we've been around for 45 years, and they've been there much longer than I have.
Oh, wow.
So in the 70s, they were studying the ARPANET, the precursor to the internet.
Okay.
Yeah. And you try to put, as researchers, they would try to put words to concepts that are just emerging. And so one example that I was mentioning earlier to Ashley is group communication through computers. This was a book that they published, which sounds
you're kidding.
It sounds like a crude approximation of what we know today as the internet and FaceTime and Skyping and all those clusters of technologies. But when it's first emerging, you're just trying to look for, what pieces are coming together that we haven't seen come together before, and to try to form words around it.
Right,
somehow.
and that's essentially what you guys, would you say that's essentially what you do?
That's definitely still the mainstay of what we do today.
Yeah. And it's kind of a spin-off of the RAND Corporation, is that what you were saying?
Originally, yep.
Okay.
We were the group that wanted to do non-classified research, so research that would be in the interest of the public and that would be more open.
So you do a lot of research. You're like a research institute, basically.
Yep.
And then what do you do with your findings? Once you say, okay, we see that the group involvement of people around computers will be something for the future.
Little change.
So what do you, with your current findings, as you find different things, what do you do with your research once you've made it?
We're all about trying to bring world-changing ideas to world-changing audiences, and those, you find those audiences everywhere. So, some of our findings we share widely to the general public, and we try to make them as accessible as possible. So, for instance, we're looking at the future of education and the future of governance as two areas that we think impact, we're sitting here in the midst of the shutdown, right? So it impacts a lot of society, and that we need to look for what innovations are happening in those spaces and share them really broadly. Or in education, there's the Khan Academy, for instance, and which does free online classes, and people are starting to piece together, instead of going through a more traditional college route or as a supplement to a college route, are piecing together their education through that means. And in some cases, getting a world-class education from a really rural place, like Redding or some of the surrounding areas.
Or someplace in Iowa.
And I love what she says on her bio. It says, and I'm actually referred to as Iowa-ish. And it's because she's from Iowa, and she's Irish.
So Irish.
She coined her own terms. So I love that. I thought that was very cute.
I heard it somewhere, and I thought, this is right.
Oh yeah.
This needs to be amplified.
So you're living here in Redding, but you still work for this company. So how does that work?
So I travel back and forth. In some ways, I feel like telecommuting, which it also feels like it's a word that's starting to get old. There's got to be something like co-presence or something that's going to replace that. But I do a lot of that, and then I travel a fair bit back and forth to the Bay and then to client meetings. So we also work, I should say, a lot with large-scale government and corporate organizations to help them think about their strategies and the innovations spaces that they want to invest in.
Yeah. Now, if any small businesses just say they want to have access to some of the information that you find, how would they be able to? How would they find out? Like, how would they know what they even need to know for their business?
So, just search terms Institute for the Future on Facebook and Twitter and on the website. And really, it's about figuring out what are some of the domains that you're most interested in and that you think will be most likely to impact you from a funding perspective, or looking at some of the tech accelerators or some of the health vectors that are likely to shape how your consumers will understand the way that they're using your products or services moving forward. So there's a lot of, we've been working on sharing our archive. It's 45 years worth, so there's some scanning still to do of some of the older documents, but the more recent public stuff is all available online.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Now, just to I will
Segue,
just just really quick though, I want to say, I know research sounds like it's not such a fun job, but I know it sounds like that, but it sounds like your job allows you to do a lot of different things. I mean, TEDx, you obviously get to do, and then you get to, I guess, walk down the street from your office in Palo Alto and do some of your research.
Yeah, it's a great location. Like there are just certain places where there's density of innovation, and that allows you to be able to bring pieces together that you may not otherwise have. So the Institute for the Future is located on University Avenue in Palo Alto, which is, it's adjacent to Stanford. We had a Facebook, one of the Facebook headquarters was next door to us, and we had this embarrassing moment when we were having a client meeting at the Institute. And it was the last day of Facebook's being next door to us, and they had a toga party to celebrate.
Oh my God.
So we have all of our clients there, and there are these people running around in the middle of the day in togas. And anyway, but you get the idea. It's just sort of like the people you bump into in the coffee shop, and you just say, "What are you up to?" And or on the Caltrain when you're heading back and forth to the city. So just those casual conversations, I think, help to understand, well, not just what is Google doing or Facebook doing or whatever, but what are you about in what you're doing, and what are you learning? You talk about the lean startup idea. What are you learning from the failures and what you're trying to do?
Well, and I think the beauty of it in the North State with people like Faye and yourself, we're going to get right into Catalyst, so we don't not talk about that. We want to cover Catalyst and TEDx and what those words are. But the beauty to me is that we're bringing some of that Palo Alto magic into the North State, and in a good way, where we're really causing people to think outside what they would normally consider.
Yeah, there's that cross-pollination, and I think it's partly that, drawing those linkages where they happen, like with Faye's background, being in the Bay Area and so on. But it's also, I feel like there's innovation that's happening here, and so and that's part of what you all spotlight in this program, is trying to look for what those innovations are. And I think it's important to name that stuff is homegrown in some sense, right? There's some of it is imported, but some of it probably we could stand to export as well. So that's kind of exciting to see that bubbling to life as people have been working over it, the past decade and plus on that.
So tell us about Catalyst. What is that organization? You hear it bandied around, but for those of us over 30, we probably want to know what is Catalyst. And then how did that feed into TEDx, and what exactly is TEDx for people who don't know?
So Catalyst is a young professionals group. We just kind of describe ourselves as young at heart because there's a rather wide range of people who are involved in this network of people. And we want to enhance the vibe of Redding generally, and to do that, we try to put on events that are the kinds of events we ourselves would like to go to.
That's right.
And so TEDx is one of those that has come out. Banff Mountain Film Festival, which is this mountain culture and extreme sports and all that, was one of the first ones that began years ago now. And it's a really experimental organization that's just trying different things and saying, well, we'd like to go to something like this, so let's just do it.
So you're an event-driven organization then?
We do, a lot of events, and then we also do what we describe as collaborative philanthropy. So it's kind of this model of we try to raise money for other organizations that we think are doing worthy work in the community, and to collaborate with them so that when we do the Banff Mountain Film Festival, they're beneficiary organizations.
I remember that. That was your first one. I brought the kids. It was hot, it was packed. You could get tickets and put in to benefit different organizations. So it was neat. It was exciting. So tell us about TEDx. We're closing out on our show, so I want to make sure we get info in on this.
So TED, if you haven't heard of TED is I think you have, right? So Technology, Entertainment, and Design is what the acronym stands for. It's a global conversation that started more than 20 years ago to bring people together across those fields. And it's really expanded topically a lot since then, and one of the more recent innovations just in the past 5 years or so are these TEDx events, where X stands for independently organized. So local organizers, like those of us from the Catalyst team, apply to TEDx for a license, and we say we'd really love to spotlight some of the ideas worth spreading in our own community. and put on one of these events. So we just had one earlier in September of this year.
It's amazing.
And it's been a lot of fun. You know, there are people who just kind of fly under the radar in this area in the North State, I feel like, who are doing fascinating things, and this can be one platform to help showcase.
Do you plan on making it an annual event?
We hope to, and we've been experimenting with different rhythms. So we've done some smaller scale events, which we call salons, kind of in the like coffee shop salon idea. Those have been at the library. And we've done a TEDx Redding Women, just only spotlighting women speakers. And so we're experimenting.
So you brought this neat little nifty thing. Tell us what this is. We have a little teeny bit of time left. So tell us quickly, what is this exciting
So this is this is something that was made during the course of the live during the course of the TEDx program in September. It was made on a 3D printer called the Cube, and a lot of people are saying that 3D printing could very well be the future of manufacturing. You know, it has potential to relocalize manufacturing, which is really exciting for a place like the Redding area. And how it's made is this is a compostable plastic, and so basically they create a base layer, and then it's an additive manufacturing process. So you add layers one after the other.
I hate to cut you off, but we're out of time.
Can't get you started.
Thanks for coming, Rachel, and thank you for watching. Come back next week for another exciting afternoon with the Forum.
I'm Karen Hoyt, Marketing Director at Shasta Regional Medical Center, and we're proud to be part of the conversation that the Forum at KIXE is bringing to our community. Shasta Regional has been around for more than 60 years supporting our community, and we would like to invite you to be a part of the Forum on KIXE. Together, we can support the community that gives us back so much. Thank you.